Let's continue with Jamil Jaffer, founder, executive director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University, also General Wesley Clark, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. They both join us now. General Clark, let me start with you. And what would you say about the president here moments ago using the term regime change? You know, he says it's not politically correct, but if Iran's unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be regime change? You know, because all the members of the cabinet, you watched them on all the shows earlier this morning, you know, very, very careful to say this was a targeted operation, not about regime change. What do you make of these new comments from the president in that context, General Clark?
I think it's a time when the president should have let U.S. actions speak for themselves, find other spokesmen to work. I think as you look at where we are right now, the United States is going to need to go to mediators, maybe someone from Oman, maybe someone from Saudi, maybe someone from Qatar to deal with the Iranians, not trying to do it directly and not trying to do it, you know, in public.
How about you, Jamil? What do you think's next here?
Well, look, I think the president, you know, has a hard time not expressing himself publicly to the world. He often does this. He often goes out on a limb outside of his own administration, even beyond his own policies. I think he's saying what a lot of us are thinking, which is, at the time when the Iranian regime is weak, why don't the Iranian people rise up? We've seen them try to do it in the past. The American government has not backed them effectively. We saw the Green Revolution where President Obama didn't back the play of the Iranian people. If they do step up, this is an opportunity for us and our allies in the region to step forward and help the Iranian people if they decide to overthrow their own regime.
You know, somebody made a point, I don't know, General Clark, you agree or disagree with this, that what happened in Syria made that look a little easy. You know, in other words, after what we had in the past and in other places like Iraq and Afghanistan and on, and you know, the so-called forever wars, that how quickly things changed in Syria made quote unquote regime change look a little bit too easy. What about in Iran, if that's the path that the people are going down?
There are groups in Iran, a number of them. It's a tribal society as well. There are people that speak different languages in Iran. They're bound together right now basically by the terror and enforcement of the mullahs regime. There are outside forces like the Mujahideen-e-Khalq, the Shah's group, his son, led by his son. I mean, there are various forces that could come into play here. But you have to consider what is the most desirable end state from the U.S. perspective. What do we want? This is the time to really focus on the end state. We've got a breathing spell, presumably, from the nuclear side. Now, do we really want to open and throw it up to the winds and say 92 million people solve this problem immediately? Going to have a lot of violence, you're going to have a lot of confusion, and you don't know what's going to emerge. So I wouldn't push it at this point were I in the administration. I'd be going to mediators and saying to them, what you should get from the Iranian regime is a renouncing of its desire to destroy Israel. Then we can talk about nuclear enrichment and all other deals and end of sanctions. But you can't stay in the region the way you are, still trying to destroy another state in the region. It's the 21st century. It's the end of the line on that. That's what I'd like to suggest that the administration do through mediation.
Pick up, Jamil, if you can, on that point, because it's a good way of putting it. What do we want, as the general asks, we being the United States?
Well, look, we may not say it publicly. We may not want to say it out loud. I think the general's right to say that there might be a lot of chaos and we don't know what's going to come out of an effort if the Iranian people rise up. But the fact of the matter, Connell, is we don't want the Iranian regime that's been in place since 1979. They've been a brutal enemy to the United States, a brutal enemy to our allies in the region. They've supported terrorist groups around the globe, Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They've killed over 1,000 Americans in Iraq and Syria. That regime can and should go. If the Iranian people wanted to go and rise up against it, we should support them. Now, we shouldn't foment it. We shouldn't go in and replace the regime. But if the Iranian people want the regime out, it should go. That is better for us, better for the region, better for the world.
All right, last topic here with both of you gentlemen would be this. What about Iran's capability here and what their next move might be? I'll go to the tablet, just go through a few screens here with U.S. troops in range of Iranian missiles being one that we've used a lot in recent days. You look at approximately the total here on the tablet, 40,000 troops in the region. And from that, you then move on to the U.S. forces, U.S. naval assets in the region that we have, and the U.S. troops that are in the Middle East. Okay, so and then final point I would make here, so we don't have this, is the Strait of Hormuz and whether Iran, General Clark, moves to close down the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if they do, someone said earlier, it'd be a quote-unquote own goal that, you know, they'd be hurting themselves. So what's your best guess, General Clark, at Iran's next move here and the capability to make it?
I think the threat to close the straits is a clever move because it doesn't directly attack the U.S. And yet it definitely impacts global commerce and Iran's neighbors. So I think the United States and our allies have to look very closely at indicators that this passage of this law by the Iranian parliament actually is going to be implemented. If it is, I think it will result in another escalation in the region, because I don't think the United States and our partners are willing to let Iran do this. Problem is, just a couple of floating mines released every hour or two that are out there will raise insurance rates, intimidate shipping, and cause a massive problem, at least initially. So this is a hard thing to stop, and that's why preemption on this may be required.
Well, so what is Iran saying? Here's some breaking news from the Iranians. So we've been following their comments at the UN and elsewhere. Iran now saying that the U.S. decided to, quote, destroy diplomacy, Jamil, and the Iranian military will decide timing, nature, and scale of its response. So that's their side of things. Close us out, Jamil, with your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I think the general's right. I think it's an easy layup for them to close the Straits of Hormuz, but they're not going to be content with that. They're going to feel the need to respond at some level. And the question is, how do they calibrate that response? Will they try to attack American forces in the region? To your point, 40 to 50,000 American forces in Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. And at the end of the day, do they use terrorist attacks against the United States here or in Europe? That's the big question. We'll see what happens going forward, Connell.
All right, Jamil, as always, thank you, Jamil Jaffer. And, of course, General Wesley Clark with us, 18 past the hour. Breaking news coverage continues here.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.